Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. And let me just say that I feel honored, this being the second occasion to contribute on the national budget of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I consider it my civic responsibility to make good use of my time. And Madam Speaker, as I begin, I wish to commend the opposition leader and the member for Siparia, for she touched today on matters affecting the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And Madam Speaker, I sat and listened, as I usually do, and the latest being the last speaker, the member for Digger Martin Central. And all I would like to say to the member in response to his contribution is that if public opinion expressed on platforms is referred to as misinformation and fake news, I can see why the member refers to the Minister of Finance's contribution as a sterling one. I can see why. Madam Speaker, nothing that the last member said in his contribution can feed the hungry of this nation. Madam Speaker, and I move to the budget statement 2022, where it states resilience in the face of a global pandemic. Madam Speaker, when we speak resilience, what resilience are we speaking of? Madam Speaker, when you have to combine food and income support into one figure in your budget statement, what resilience is that? Madam Speaker, when a government tells the disabled, in other words, based on fiscal measures, buy your own equipment, who can't in most instances help themselves, what resilience is that, Madam Speaker? When a finance minister promised additional food cards in a mid-year review, apart from the 50 food cards that MPs would have received, and to date nothing, and came here to read another budget, what resilience is that? Madam Speaker, and I heard the member for St. Joseph mentioning that when he referred to the food baskets, mentioning that food cards, persons, when you give them a food card, they tend to purchase unhealthy foods. Madam Speaker, for God's sake, people could hardly make ends meet in this country. They will go to the supermarket to purchase junk, meaning unhealthy items. Obviously, $510, you are trying to purchase as much as you can to feed your family for the entire month. So what resilience are we speaking of? And Madam Speaker, most of all, just 2 days after the Minister of Finance read his budget statement, and I have here in my possession, Wednesday, 6th October, the Daily Express, where the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, which I would be focused on during this presentation, placed on public notice in the newspaper with approximately almost 1,300 names on approximately 8 pages in the Express newspaper for persons who would not have collected the social development checks. Madam Speaker, if I was the government of Trinidad and Tobago, I would be very ashamed to come here today and praise this budget statement 2022. Knowing that for the last year, we have been asking on this side, what is the status of income support? Is it that persons are still being owed based on the responses on the Ministry of Social Development official Facebook page? Is it that persons are still owed for 2020 in terms of the income support? We got no responses. 2 days after the national budget was read, you see a notice, 8 pages, almost 1,300 names for uncollected checks. Madam Speaker, why this notice was not placed earlier in the year? We have to ask that. This is very, very suspicious. Why it was not placed earlier in this year or during the course of 2021 when we kept asking about this. And here we want to speak resilience in the face of a pandemic. We have a purple book which was given to us in our package where we speak of social investment program, Madam Speaker, revitalizing the social sector. And here we are, almost 1,300 persons are now being given notice when we in our various constituencies would have been receiving many phone calls, many visits, asking us and saying to us, when would we get our grants? When would we get our COVID relief? We are calling, we are not getting any answers. So how are these things uncollected, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, as I move on, and as I indicated, my focus on the social sector, I ask, based on this presentation on Monday, can we have any faith, confidence, and belief in this budget presentation? Madam Speaker, let us take, for example, page 162. And the leader of opposition would have pronounced on the curry issue, which I do not intend to get into too much, but I just want to touch on something. The minister, after making such a huge error, had the audacity to indicate that he saw it necessary to clear up misunderstanding and uninformed commentators. Madam Speaker, really, was this a mere slip-up, an error, an oversight, or was it designed for appeasement of a particular community, or was it designed to score political points at the time? Because as the records clearly shown, curry has been a zero-rated item since 2016. But Madam Speaker, for reinforcement, the Minister of Finance has held that portfolio of which he boasted again during his presentation since 2015. And therefore it is passing strange that he's unaware of same. Madam Speaker, but let us not dwell on this glaring attempt to hoodwink the population at large. And so much is being said about zero-rated items. And as it relates to zero-rated items, I wish to refer to a comment made by the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago on Wednesday, October 6, 2021, and I quote, comparing a pre-budget basket, basic food basket, of 1 unit of each item and 3 pounds of pigtail, the SAT president said it was at an average of $311.08 against $278.72, a savings of $32 with removal of VAT on these items. Madam Speaker, I love to get into realistic situations. Madam Speaker, let us place this so-called caring act being boasted about by the Minister of Finance into reality. And I want to refer to a CPEP worker. A CPEP worker earns roughly $100 per day with a fortnightly earning of roughly $1,000. Madam Speaker, I ask, what significant relief does this bring to his or her economic status? And I refer to a CPEP worker. How does this impact on his or her financial well-being? The reality is that a CPEP worker must spend approximately 3 days of their earnings to purchase such a basic food basket. And this government wants us to give them pips for that, as though it's a noble gesture. Madam Speaker, this is the 7th budget of this Minister of Finance, and old age pensioners have not received not even a $1 increase, but you slap them with a 12.5% VAT on food for the past 6 years, a tax the UNC government removed, And you are now pretending to show care by your announcement of VAT removal on some food. Madam Speaker, too little, too late. And Madam Speaker, I just want to give an example of, let's say, 23 basic items. And I want to do a comparison here now with the prices from 2015 versus prices in 2021. And for a pensioner, 23 basic items would have cost $342.24 in 2015. Today in 2021, that would cost a pensioner $476.04, a difference of $132.80, or 39% more, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you are to agree, a pensioner was spending $1,000 in groceries in 2015 with an inflation of 39%. They would have to spend $1,390 for the same goods they were getting for $1,000 in 2015, a difference of $390, and their pension have not increased since 2015. But Madam Speaker, thanks to the Honorable Member for Siparia for increasing pension by $1,000 during her term in office, 2010 to 2015. Whilst you on the other side describe them as a burden, we treasured our pensioners. Madam Speaker, so I showed you basic food baskets, and imagine, Madam Speaker, those basic food baskets that I gave examples of, they didn't even spend money on vegetables yet. Or as we say locally, they didn't even spend money on vegetables yet to get a tal curry, to use the already zero-rated curry. And Madam Speaker, the crux of this issue is that the Minister of Finance and the PNM government, by extension, continues in its attempt to hoodwink the population as being a caring government, which is their mantra. I'm sure we all remember, we love you, so we take good care of you. Madam Speaker, tell me how this facade can be imposed on a suffering, highly underemployed population struggling to meet their daily expenditure. And Madam Speaker, it is to be noted that pharmaceuticals, rent, mortgages are already negatively impacting on their daily lives. As an MP myself, Madam Speaker, I can share that at times during the last 3 months, I would have had to provide trucks to help persons so that they don't sleep on the streets after curfew when they are evicted from their apartments. Madam Speaker, bearing in mind the several glaring anomalies exposed in the budget submission and the minister's implicit statement that the budget preparation was undertaken by the technocrats. So if we are to take his word, Madam Speaker, he simply read what was given to him. Madam Speaker, I now move to some data in which I want to share as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago in the midst of a pandemic. Madam Speaker, according to the Inter-American Development Bank online socio-economic survey, during the period of April 16th to 30th, 2020, what must be uppermost in our minds is that this was at the onset of the pandemic in 2020. And Madam Speaker, we are now in September 2021. Madam Speaker, in this survey, 70.1% of the households in Trinidad and Tobago reported an income loss in April 2020. And what is this saying in reality, Madam Speaker? That there was less money from working less hours, less days, or less pay, or even no pay within households. It is also saying the income loss resulted from households closing their businesses either because of lack of demand or directives. For example, we see it, bars. Madam Speaker, this survey also indicated that 66.8% of the households in Trinidad and Tobago of low-income households were impacted by employment loss. What is this saying in reality? That there was business closure, downsizing, general job loss, or at the extreme, business closure. Madam Speaker, this survey also indicated that 70.9% of the households of women were responsible for coordinating or assisting with homeschooling. What is this saying in reality? That additional responsibilities, in some instances, they had to give up jobs, which would have further contributed to income loss. And I move now to savings. Madam Speaker, 28.4% of the households in Trinidad and Tobago indicated having enough savings to cover for an expected expense. What is this saying in reality? And in reality, this means that 1 in every 4 households has a savings to cover an unexpected expense, such as a laptop, illness, or emergency. This survey also indicated, Madam Speaker, that most households barely have enough savings to cover 1 week of basic expenses. And, Madam Speaker, just one more in terms of the data, 35.5% of Trinbagonian households requested loans, transfers, or remittances from family or friends. What is this saying in reality again? 1 in every 3 households in Trinidad and Tobago has been engaging in borrowing. However, the lower income persons have gone up to almost 50% of households, Madam Speaker, earning less than minimum wage. Madam Speaker, what does this Inter-American Development Bank report highlights for us? I have seen 4 points out of this, and I can say that it highlights a high percentage of income loss in households. It highlights greater job loss amongst women. It highlights no savings to cover expenses. And it highlights increased levels of informal borrowing in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, clearly the summary of this report reflects that failing in the face of the global pandemic is real, whilst the government, like the proverbial ostriches, buries itself in the sand with loose claims of resilience in the face of the global pandemic. Madam Speaker, when we look at the social sector and the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, and you see all these names on the newspaper as uncollected checks, you see so many people on public platforms crying out for help, you have to wonder what tangible mechanisms have been developed by the Ministry of Social Development to take care of what was highlighted in that IDB report. Madam Speaker, it is clear that this government has no clear exit strategy to move from crisis response to recovery. And Madam Speaker, this social sector investment program 2022, in reading it, you would see that the Ministry of Social Development now have to go back into their books. They have to go back to what they would have crushed. Because you would see here, in this social sector investment program, that the ministry is stating that they would establish the program Step Up to help with case management and removing people from the dependency on the social support system. Madam Speaker, under the People's Partnership government led by the member for Siparia, this same Step Up program was called Rise Up program to assist those vulnerable persons who were within the social support system. After 2 years to exit the system, and within the 2 years to help them to become better so they can exit the system. So you crushed what you had, and you now want to reinvent these programs because you need it now more than ever in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, let it be known that this report referred to, as stated earlier, was conducted in April of 2020, And we are now in October of 2021, and the situation has worsened dramatically with lockdowns, with state of emergency, and no direction from the government. Well, Madam Speaker, I should retract no direction from the government. I should state as the government is heading us into a spiraling downhill direction. Madam Speaker, yet they bring to us a hodgepodge, mismatched, error-prone budget to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I now move to the draft estimates 2022. And as I have already stated, the government continues to mislead and misinform the population by advancing claims of providing greater social services to the nation resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Madam Speaker, it can be gleaned that prior to the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, which surfaced in December 2019 in Wuhan, China, the government had already passed the budget for fiscal 2019-2020. Madam Speaker, the actual expenditure of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services at that time stood at $5,432,938,583. Whilst now, Madam Speaker, the estimates provided for 2022 stands at $5,253,015,000, which represent a decrease from pre-pandemic 2020 to post or current pandemic 2022, a decrease of approximately $180 million, Madam Speaker. This is the semantics played by the government because any sane or rational individual would immediately recognize that arising from the pandemic and all its inherent fallouts, that there was an urgent need by the government to ramp up services under the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. In other words, Madam Speaker, the government is saying we need less money in 2022 for social services, whilst everyone recognizes that there are greater levels of poverty and unemployment amongst the population. Madam Speaker, I cannot fathom what the thinking of the government is. And Madam Speaker, it is to be noted that the proposed allocation to the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services represents approximately 10% of the national budget. Madam Speaker, if you are to look at the estimates, most of the funding under this Ministry of Social Development is consumed in fixed, variable, and overhead costs. And the question arises, how much of this $5.2 billion reaches the poor and vulnerable? As I said, what measures have the government instituted to the ratio as stated above? It is clear that from last year to now, Madam Speaker, the government has not reviewed their delivery strategy relative to ensuring more money reaches to the poor and vulnerable. Madam Speaker, can this House imagine if $3 billion TT dollars reaches directly into the hands of the poor and vulnerable? Madam Speaker, would this not create an economic boom? Would this not kickstart the economy? Would this not create higher levels of employment? Would this not create higher levels of savings? Madam Speaker, are these not the indicators of economic prosperity? Let us deal with the real issues and not the insignificance of announcing big figures to look good when really and truly it's a coating for your inefficiencies during the fiscal years. Madam Speaker, I want to spend a little time on the COVID relief measures, namely the income support, salary relief grants, and grants in general. And Madam Speaker, it is clearly established that the system adopted by the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services in approving grants and relief measures is devoid of transparency and accountability. Madam Speaker, you would see in the public domain over the last few days where persons are mentioning the lack of accountability and transparency in this 2022 budget presentation. Madam Speaker, can the line minister, the Minister of Social Development, indicate to the population at large what's the real qualifying criteria in accessing these grants? Since persons, in terms of conversations with constituents and the general rank and file who visited and continue to visit my office, reveals that persons are traumatized, stressed, and generally confused as to the method of accessing these facilities. And I will hope that with an allocation of approximately $2.1 million under promotions, on promotions, publicity, and printing, that an appropriate medium, and I hope the member for Diego Martin Central take note of this, that an appropriate medium be developed for persons to access such facilities. Madam Speaker, I hasten to add at this time that persons seeking support relief do this out of need. Madam Speaker, however, in the last fiscal year, these persons at times, how sad, were described as greedy and not needy. Madam Speaker, let me place on the records. I live on the ground with my feet properly grounded. And I know as an established fact that the average Trinbagonian would only seek a hamper during this time if they are in real desperate circumstances. And let it be known that we are a proud people who care for each other and that we have grown into sharing a banana during this pandemic, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from discussions on the street and from all quarters of society as it pertains to accountability, we reiterate the call for an audit into the COVID-19 relief measures, the grants to date, as the opposition leader did before. Madam Speaker, I now move to the salary relief grants. And from the budget statement, relative to salary relief grants, what can be surmised is that in 2020, the amount of $143.6 million was paid in salary relief grants, representing 86,924 grants. However, in 2021, a total of $24 million was paid, representing 8,200 grants, which is approximately 78,000 grants less. Madam Speaker, what is the reason for the steep drop? In absence of any explanation, Madam Speaker, I would like to offer one. And it must be noted that the economic climate has worsened in the country, so it would have been plausible that a greater number of persons would be in need of salary relief grants. Therefore, Madam Speaker, from conjecture, I wish to offer the reason. August 2020 was an election year. And I would hate to think that the government used this mechanism for electioneering. Madam Speaker, let me place on the record, if $24 million was utilized for 2021, then why was there a need to set aside $200 million in 2022? Something is not adding up, Madam Speaker. Or is it that the government did not pay a significant number of grants in 2021? Keeping in mind, another election is in the air very soon, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now want to turn to those dearest to me, and that is the people of Chaguanas East. Madam Speaker, in this budget presentation 2022, no mention of major development works encompassing the Chaguanas region, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, anywhere you go in Chaguanas, any event, any festival, any meeting, any walkabout, the major issue in Chaguanas is that of traffic congestion. And Madam Speaker, under the under the guidance and the leadership of the opposition leader.
Madam Speaker, I just want to invoke Standing Order 8 and just remind the member that the language of the House continues to be English. So if the member could speak more English, we'd be happy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Am I speaking Spanish?
Walkabout is not an English word, and fat hum is not English. So if you could speak English, we'd be happy. Please continue.
Madam Speaker, as I continue, traffic congestion is a major issue in the region of Chaguanas, and no mention was made of the Brentwood and Marching Interchange, which is the phase 4 and 5 on the Ministry of Works website. That will significantly ease the traffic congestion in Chaguanas. Madam Speaker, as I continue, no mention of a state-of-the-art hospital in Chaguanas, which is one of the fastest growing regions in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I move to dilapidated road networks. No mention, Madam Speaker, and I wish to mention that I would have written, after much consultation with my constituents, written to the Ministry of Works, the Minister of Works, outlining all the works needed from the Ministry of Works, and to date, no written response, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no mention of small industrial estates within the Chaguanas region, which would encourage things like agro-processing. Madam Speaker, I move to squatter regularization. No mention. Madam Speaker, since 2019, as a councillor, as a mayor, moving on as an MP, families were submitted to the Ministry of Local Government for the latrine eradication program. And as I see in the social sector, they are still in the first phase. Chaguanas not even considered. Madam Speaker, recently in some meetings with constituents, a gentleman on a wheelchair walked up to me and said, "All my life I've been trying to be regularized." A walker, sorry, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. A walker. He walked up to me and he said that all my life I've been trying to get my regularization. And following that meeting, Madam Speaker, I went on to write the Minister of Agriculture, who met with these people during the 2020 election, to which I got a negative response. And Madam Speaker, one of the issues in Chaguanas East is that of those persons awaiting their deed of comfort are unable to access social support. And Madam Speaker, there are supporters from both sides, citizens of this country. Madam Speaker, as I move on, in terms of the constituency and disaster, the constituency is awaiting assistance, financial support, parity with Arima, Aruca, Maloney, San Fernando, and Tobago East and West, as it relates to the self-help grants and the NSDP grants under the Ministry of Social Development. We are seeing so much money is being expended. Money is catered again in this fiscal year, and those persons who have been affected, their roofs affected, etc., are still awaiting financial support. Madam Speaker, no allocation under the Ministry of Social Development to deal with the issue of street dwellers. And just last week, Madam Speaker, there were 4 street dwellers in the constituency of Chaguanas East who were willing to come off the streets. And Madam Speaker, in working with the Ministry of Social Development, they too have their challenges of getting the willing persons to get the necessary tests at the hospitals, etc., in terms of transportation, to which, of course, I provided in working with them. But, Madam Speaker, in the midst of a pandemic, the issue of street dwellers should be a priority of this government, and you see no allocation catered for. Madam Speaker, the constituency of Chaguanas East, many persons, and I repeat, my waiting list is long in terms of COVID relief measures, in terms of income support, salary relief grants, etc. Madam Speaker, let me place on record that this budget does not address the current and developmental needs of the people of my constituency of Chaguanas East. And Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I have a few questions to lay before about this 2022 budget. And Madam Speaker, what does this budget address as it pertains to the approximately 125,000 persons who would have lost their jobs? No serious job creation. Madam Speaker, what does this budget address as it relates to those living under the poverty line and sliding towards destitution? Madam Speaker, what does this budget address as it relates to the socially displaced and vulnerable in the society? What does this budget address as it pertains to single mothers and the current monitoring arrangement as it relates to online class? What does this budget address as it relates to persons developing and obtaining skills to improve their standard in society? Madam Speaker, it is simple. This budget provides no direction, no hope, no confidence, no substance, no developmental plans. Yet we are called upon to be resilient in the face of a global pandemic. Madam Speaker, this annual ritual by the Minister of Finance simply perpetuates the status quo and gives to those who have and takes from those who haven't. Our future destiny, Madam Speaker, is mired in this visionless compilation of numbers by this insensitive regime. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate.